So today I'm going to start with a brief introduction, explaining what we do at Granular Energy and why we decided to draft this draft and launch this report. Our friends at Baringa, Beth, will provide an overview of the content of the report. We'll then have Rachel from Climate Group that will provide some insights from the 24/7 carbon-free coalition that is managed by Climate Group. And finally, we'll have Frédéric Lefort from Engie, who will present a bit what they do at Engie related to hourly matching and their 24/7 offers. In terms of house rules, feel free to put some questions in the chat, and we may be replying directly in the chat. Otherwise, we've allocated 20 minutes at the end of the hour to discuss and answer any questions. So let me start by explaining a bit what we do at Granular Energy. We're a SaaS company, and we provide software tools to utilities, energy retailers, IPPs, independent power producers, to manage green electricity. So that means energy attribute certificates like guarantees of origin. But our software also allows energy retailers to create and launch easily hourly match tariffs. Hence why we're heavily involved in all this hourly matching tariff report. And so we're not working directly with consumers, but we're helping these energy retailers provide offers, hourly match tariffs and hourly match offers to consumers, and the reporting on where the electricity is coming from on an hourly basis. So our software help our customers optimize their certificate management. So that's about saving time, reducing the risk of errors, optimizing their operations. And on the other end, that's also helping them build the premium offers of tomorrow, that including hourly matching tariffs. Speaking about the report a bit more in detail, even though we're not directly involved with end consumers, it's been for multiple times we've heard from end consumers the question of where can I find an hourly match tariffs. I'm interested to go further and go this route, but do you know who could provide me a tariff that I don't want to do the work myself to actually go and source PPAs and do the matching myself and all that? Is there a simpler way? Can I find an energy supplier that could do all this on my behalf? And so this is why we decided to do this report, is to educate a bit on this topic, the end consumers. And alongside this report that provide a nice overview of where we are at right now in terms of hourly matching tariffs. And the report is also based on a survey from 75 energy suppliers that participated in our survey. But alongside the publication of this report, we also published on our website a list of energy suppliers that can provide country by country 24/7 tariffs, so hourly matched tariffs. So it means now, since the 8th of January, if you're an end consumer and you're located in Germany and you want to know who can supply you with hourly transparency, you can go on the website and see who are the energy suppliers that have an offer available. So that's it for me today. I will be there also at the end to answer any of your questions and also in the chat during the presentation. But I will hand over to Beth from Baringa that will talk in more details about the report.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm having some issues taking control of the slides, sadly, but if you could move me along.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, brilliant. Just back on the previous page, thank you. I'll just start with a quick introduction about Baringa and myself and our work in this space. So we are a management consultancy, and we work with some of the world's largest energy users, advising on their power procurement and decarbonisation strategies. And while our clients span many different sectors, the key questions that they ask us all have a common theme, and that is, how do I procure credible renewable power, but for a reasonable price? And that's why it was so great to co-author the report with Granular on the state of hourly match tariffs around the world. And I'm thrilled to share some of the insights with you today. So I'll take us through the key findings of the supply survey across Europe, the US, and Asia Pacific, including the benefits that they're delivering for suppliers and customers alike, as well as the barriers holding it back. So I'll call out our headline findings from the report, but worth first for anyone who doesn't know, an hourly matched tariff is a tariff offered to corporate customers that provides information on the origin of the electricity consumed with an hourly or sub-hourly level of granularity. And this just allows customers to calculate their market-based scope 2 emissions using hourly data, in line with the recently proposed changes to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and the Science Based Targets Initiative. So overall, we see that hourly matched tariffs are moving from a niche product to something much more widespread, and that 46 suppliers across the world's largest power markets offer hourly matched tariffs, with 6 more suppliers currently preparing to roll them out. And that covers 73% of the globe's electricity consumption. And we expect that this will only increase as more markets develop and countries continue on their paths to net zero. If we could skip to the next slide, please. When we look at the regional coverage of tariffs, it's clear that Europe, and most notably the UK, emerges as the most advanced market for hourly matched tariffs. So taking the UK specifically, there are 10 suppliers already offering hourly matched tariffs, with Good Energy really leading the charge in 2023 for their whole supply portfolio. And the UK also shows how it's a supportive policy environment and local initiatives are really key to incentivising hourly tariffs. And we've called out some examples here from the UK and wider Europe. For instance, in the UK, the Green Buildings Council, they award the highest score in its renewable energy procurement standard to companies that are using hourly matched tariffs. And that's been great in really accelerating the uptake in the commercial real estate sector. And if we look at the Vivolt label in France, this also requires the calculation and disclosure to consumers on labelled tariffs of the half-hourly matching score. Then looking at Asia and Oceania, China specifically, providers like China Light and Power and Asia Rex are already offering hourly matching to their corporate customers. And as well as China's largest utilities, so State Grid and China Southern Grid, they're also showing increasing interest in hourly matching. JERA in Japan is offering hourly matched energy certificates for their large customers, and Australia is also set to follow suit with their new hourly timestamped certificate system. And finally, in North America, in the US, some large retail energy suppliers and regulated utilities have begun offering hourly matched tariffs to customers in their regions. And it's likely that retail energy providers can move a bit quicker in offering hourly products, as they can be more flexible than the regulated utilities in creating more innovative products. And we do see that in the deregulated and competitive regions like ERCOT and PJM, where there are hourly matched options. And then on the technology and infrastructure side, it's also great to see how tracking systems are already capable of issuing hourly certificates. So in PJM, GAT, NAR, and MREP markets. And it's just worth quickly noting that the survey lacked participation from businesses in Africa and South America. And there are likely multiple other hourly tariffs available in these regions that were sadly not represented in our study. If we flick to the next slide, on a final note, I just wanted to touch on some of the emerging characteristics of the tariffs that are currently offered and the barriers that are noted by respondents that are preventing more suppliers from developing an hourly tariff offer. So it's mainly only the largest power users engaging with hourly tariffs, and suppliers are often setting minimum load requirements, and that's usually around the 10 gigawatt hour per year mark. And that just shows that currently the early adopters tend to be those large energy users. They have the resources, they have internal expertise and more of a procurement maturity to seek and assess more advanced clean energy products. But with that being said, access is broadening. We mentioned Good Energy earlier, and they have no access requirements and are targeting more of the smaller power consumers. It's also good to see that the majority of tariffs are aligned with the 24/7 Carbon-Free Coalition technical criteria, which together with the energy tax standard, which support is also growing for, they just add more of a credibility to the tariff offered and just helps consumers compare apples to apples in that sense. Most suppliers will also directly offer hourly greenhouse gas emissions calculations to their customers as part of the service, and that just removes the complexity of them having to do that themselves. And on a final note, it's quite interesting that a few suppliers offer their tariffs publicly, but that mainly just mirrors how tariffs are more concentrated within those large energy users. So there's more of a bespoke contracting needed between themselves and the supplier, rather than more of a standard offer being publicized on a website. And that leads quite nicely into the main points raised by suppliers who do not offer tariffs as to the barriers that are preventing them from entering this space. And that is that there's just not adequate demand, and that the large energy users and early adopters of just a small pool with the willingness to pay that small power consumers don't have. And that's mirrored in the updates to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and SBTI, which focus their hourly matching requirements on those large energy users with exemption thresholds for smaller consumers, and the fact that they're not mandatory disclosure requirements that companies sort of self-select into those bodies. The second barrier raised was all around cost and operational complexity of implementing hourly matching tariffs. So requiring upgrades to billing tools, to changing their data pipelines, and so on. All of these changes would require significant investment and operational overhead that some suppliers just simply can't face. Regulatory issues was also a barrier, with some markets requiring approval for new tariff structures, as well as finally data availability, given that markets will need reliable and validated hourly consumption and generation data in order to accurately track the claims to hourly consumption. So quite a whistle-stop tour of our report and our findings, but I do want to emphasize that it's overall a very positive story and a positive picture. And that the more customers engage with these tariffs and the more markets transition towards net zero and transition their energy markets, the more suppliers will offer hourly matched tariffs. Thank you very much. I believe I'm passing over to Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. I'll just try and take control myself. It looks like I've got an issue with that as well, so I will just ask for the next slide then, please. Thank you. And yeah, thank you, Beth, as well for taking us through those findings. I found it really heartening to see all of that as well. The growth in the offerings on hourly matched products is making it just so much easier and more accessible for businesses, and that's the kind of consumer perspective that I wanted to bring in to today. And in fact, literally just this morning, I was having a conversation with a business around 24/7, and one of their questions was around like, what supplier options do we have for tariffs on this? And I was like, excellent, I have just the report to send to you. So yeah, already something that's been incredibly useful and something businesses want to see. But first, I'll give a little bit about Climate Group and who we are. Climate Group brings together leading businesses and governments to tackle the world's biggest sources of emissions. And by building influential networks and holding organisations accountable, we turn ambition into action on a path to a net zero future. And if I could have the next slide, please. Cool. You might know Climate Group best for our RE100 programme, which has over 440 companies from across the globe committed to 100% annually matched electricity consumption with renewable generation. And it was actually those leading RE100 companies who were at or near their 100% targets that were asking us, what's next? What does leadership in energy procurement now look like? How can we fully decarbonise electricity grids? And that led Climate Group to creating our newest initiative. If I could have the next slide, please. The 24/7 Carbon Free Coalition. And we are a coalition of innovative corporate energy buyer leaders taking that next ambitious step towards ensuring their businesses are powered by 24/7 carbon-free electricity. So every hour, every day, and sourced locally. And why are businesses looking to 24/7 carbon-free electricity? Well, it's about boosting competitiveness, so adopting more stable energy pricing now and being an early adopter in order to ultimately drive down costs. It's about improving energy reliability, so protecting against the volatile fossil fuel pricing and availability. And it's also about enhancing brand trust and credibility, so offering that greater transparency, not just to consumers, but also to investors. And then also ensuring regulatory compliance, so getting ahead of the regulatory change, such as the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which came to mind and was referenced alongside SBTi updates earlier as well. And all of this, of course, has that kind of global ripple effect, creating positive change in the world by scaling new technologies to remove reliance on fossil fuels. It's directing investment into local communities, and by being part of the coalition, creating unified collective action between businesses, governments, and other stakeholders. If I could have the next slide, please. So work is already well underway for the coalition. We've published our first ever technical criteria for corporates, as Beth mentioned, on how to credibly measure and report 24/7 CFE. And this was a framework built with the support of our technical advisory group and strategic advisory group. So a big thank you to our ecosystem partners on screen, including Granular Energy. And we are now also working on a tailored playbook. We've got a series of quarterly workshops with supply side partners to deep dive into implementation issues. We're developing the reporting infrastructure and a change enablers paper for policymakers. So in other words, it's the infrastructure of a movement. And if we get to the next slide, please. Thank you. And the market leaders that we are working with in the coalition already are progressing with and trialing 24/7. And I've pulled up some of the case studies that we do also have on our website that you can read more detail on what each of these ones are up to. But I did want to highlight as well, actually, that these are leaders from across sectors and across the globe. So yes, there's big tech players, but there's also pharma, telecoms, and cement with operations in North America, Europe, and APAC. And we do have more partners to announce from other sectors as well soon. So watch this space. And we speak to many corporates more broadly than this, and so we know that tariffs coming onto the market are something that they are very interested in. They are sending the demand signal for more of this, and it makes ultimately the transition so much easier and more accessible. So overall, the coalition and this report signals that carbon-free electricity is becoming a core part of the global energy system. If we go on to the next slide. So yeah, finally, please do get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more about the coalition and how to get involved. And you can scan the QR code on screen to sign up to our fortnightly newsletter to keep up to date with the coalition and 24/7 developments. So thank you. I'll can take questions at the end and hand over to Fred now.
I'll just try to reload the slides just so we try to correct the bug. So give me just 1 second. Perfect.
Thank you, Bruno, and good afternoon to everybody. And let's start directly with who we are in Engie, a global utility with a clear ambition, become the best energy transition utility by 2030. We are basically involved in 4 different business across 30 countries. The first stream of business is power generation with more than 100 gigs today, of which 50% is renewables and battery. And we target by 2030 more than 80 gigawatts of renewables and flexibility. The second one is infrastructure, primarily gas in France, but now extended to power and notably in South America. The fourth one is local infrastructure, which is basically heating and cooling district management. And last but not least, supply and energy management. We optimize the asset of the group and source power and gas to customers, and we supply gas and electricity to while managing energy management and market risk for B2B and B2C customers, and support all our customers through their decarbonization journey. We have probably, at least on B2B, one of the largest commercial franchise across the world, delivering supply and risk management solution from the small customers as well as the big C&I customers. And one of the pillar of our strategy actually is a bet we took last year, and this bet is to offer to any customers who requested by 2030 a 24/7 carbon-free energy contract, which is quite huge. Our challenge now on our side and on my side is to make it available, affordable for the small bakery as well as the big tech. And why this bet in Engie? Because it's a way to illustrate our strategy and our position of integrated company from RES, renewable and flexible generation to customer supply contract, including strong capabilities in trading and energy management. So we wanted to express what is a 24/7 by Engie, and a definition which is consistent with who we are and how we are organized. So we define the 24/7 by Engie by matching the energy consumption of our customers with dedicated green and local assets, renewable and flex assets, hour by hour, day and night. And this is a way again to define specifically our definition of 24/7, and we precise the offering to address most of our customers, both to keep the global promise to have access to dedicated, renewable and flexible and local assets to match with the consumption. We assume that at least starting in 2026, we should have at least early matching score of 70%, and this score is to be improved in the years to come. So starting with the first on the right side, the premium offer, the most sophisticated, is a premium offer, premium 24/7 by Engie, which is basically through PPA. So it consists on a combination of several corporate PPA and different technology, and no access to batteries, to flexibility in a supply contract to reach a certain early matching score committed at the signature of the contract. So you have here what does it bring? What are the future? The transparency with access to early match consumption, and you have the future on the screen. The most recent deal we have is with Google in Germany, and we have a most simple contracts, more simple offer, which is the access 24/7 by Engie, with a faster access and more flexible. This is a contract through certificates dedicated to customers with a few gigawatt hours per year, with a duration of 2 to 5 years. And it brings as well, we don't want to reduce the promise, so it brings as well a full transparency on the assets dedicated to the contract, but a faster access to renewable energy. And while with the premium, we could add some additionality, financing new assets in the different corporate PPA that we combine. And we have recently signed a deal with Einstein Bagel, which is a bagel franchise in Texas. With this contract is for more than 25 sites in Texas. So you can have access, and we can put in the chat the link to the webpage where you can have access to all the information, and especially all the single point of contact across the world to start discussion and to start engagement on 24/7 contract. Thank you for your attention, and I think that I pass the mic to you, Bruno.
Yes, thanks, Frédéric, for this presentation. Very interesting to see how you're tackling this as an energy retailer, and how you're adapting your offers to the size and complexity of your different customers. We now have time for Q&A. I've already seen the first question come through from Daniel, and I think it's for you, Frédéric. It's about, I think you can see it in the chat. How does Engie look to use battery storage to increase renewable assets CFEC percentage score? Do you optimize with CFE in mind, optimize as a battery asset, and the charge discharge may or may not help improve the CFE percentage?
Well, we are starting to use batteries to improve the score, and especially we are in that journey with Google in Germany. The idea is not to, is to optimize the battery against the market and to see how does it impact the CFE score. We don't want, and by the way, Google doesn't want either today to de-optimize the battery just to improve the score. So this is, honestly, we are learning jointly with Google. We have other customers in the US where we are starting to use battery as well. We are learning and testing how the optimization of the battery with the dedicated assets I mentioned to the customers, how does it impact the CFE score? So we are in this the start, I would say, the learning path. But the main point today is we optimize the battery against the market as an asset, as a normal optimization, I would say, and not try to dedicate or modify the optimization to improve the score.
Thanks,
it improved the score. And by the way, the first results show that it improves the score. It's not absolutely huge, but it improves the score.
Thanks, Frédéric. Maybe I can see a question that maybe I can take on, it seems to be around the UK because it mentions REGO. What is the premium above standard REGO for matching per megawatt hour? So I assume the question means for an hourly match tariff, how much end consumers are paying compared to a normal green tariff, just annually backed by REGO. So I can take this one. It varies. It varies because it varies on the, it's not the same effort if an energy supplier commits to a certain level of hourly matching, or if it just brings additional transparency. So and again, as you can see from Engie's tariff, it's not the same if you try to source dedicated green assets that are additional but are brand new and that you're bringing into the grid, or if you're using existing assets. So the cost is definitely not going to be the same. In the UK, in general, without too many additional assets, so more on the using existing assets, what we've seen in the market is between 20 and 20 cents and £1 per megawatt hour, depending on the quality of the offer. But there may be something cheaper and some are more expensive. Actually, I'm saying 20 cents, but we are aware of at least one energy supplier that is offering hourly matching to all their customers for free. So there's a few other questions. What are the main barriers to implement hourly matching in countries with no mandatory regulation? Do they need incentives? Beth, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think there's also another one in there for me, so I'll take them both
Okay,
at the same
perfect.
time. So main barriers, it would be the customer base. Ultimately, if customers aren't calling for those types of tariffs, the suppliers won't sort of be supply led and offer them. I think as mentioned, as countries transition and more salient sort of grows around 24/7 matching and hourly tariffs as sort of the green standard for what is seen as the most credible option. I think we expect that that demand from the large and also medium to smaller sized consumers to grow. I think also I'll read out the second one, sort of tagged to me. So for Beth, if hourly matching becomes widespread, how do we prevent it from turning into a license to consume rather than a mechanism that actively guides more responsible electricity use? And this is a really interesting question. And it's, we've seen backlash in the media recently on AI boom and data center boom and how it's just taking a lot of the renewables that are being brought to grid, sort of being eaten by the growth in demand from those large energy users. And it's something that the large energy users themselves are being asked. It's, what are you doing to improve grid resiliency? How are you better driving the transition yourself? So I think part of the narrative is around self-generation as a step in the chain to better improving your demand match, as well as a tariff that a supplier can offer you. And in that way, moving away from just, I'm pulling all my power from the grid, making resiliency issues worse, making scarcity supply issues worse, and sort of furthering that license to consume narrative, and more taking it into the hands of the consumer themselves of what can I do as a large energy user to better decarbonize and incentivize more grid decarbonisation. I think, Rachel, do you want to jump in on this question too?
Yeah, because it's such a good one. And I just wanted to add from the kind of coalition's perspective, that's why we saw having technical criteria as being so important in, and we've designed them in such a way that they do drive, that intention is to drive additionality to the grid and to incentivize the supporting technologies alongside that battery storage, demand side flexibility, those kind of things. And so there are things like caps so that companies couldn't just say buy up all of the existing renewables and claim 100% hourly match, say, without having sort of encourage additional resources to go on, so that doesn't then impact those other grid users and their scores would go down if that company did that, for instance. So yeah, that's why there's kind of safeguards built into the technical criteria from the coalition side, so that we are ensuring that it's genuinely transitioning to responsible electricity use as it becomes widespread.
Yeah, maybe to rebound on what you said, Rachel, it's a real challenge to find the right balance between let's say very restrictive conditions to claim a 24/7 carbon-free energy and something that allow quite a large part of the end consumer, B2B customer, B2B consumer at least to have access to this and to do more than annual matching. So we need to restrict, not to have a risk of greenwashing or no, to have something not better than what we have today, and but to give access to 24/7 to most of our let's do B2B customer or B2B consumer. Because if not, by 2030 we will have just the top big tech companies that will have access to 24/7 carbon-free energy. So additionality is clearly a premium, but it's a good start to start to look at how you consume and how you buy green electron at early granularity, even if it's from existing assets. So it's a step by step. It's a journey. We need to be better than yesterday, and then move forward to something more restrictive, maybe.
Thanks, Frédéric. Actually, all this discussion, there's a question in the chat from David around the credibility of your standard DACs and the link with PPAs. So I think it's a good transition. So the question is around increasing customer concern about the credibility of EAC, and is this approach of being more granular can address a share of those concerns rather than doing a PPA. So I think it's a very interesting question, and I think it's not only customers that are have concern about the credibility of EACs, it's even the regulator. We've seen recently there's 2 European regulation that ask for hourly matching. So the one for RFNBO for green hydrogen, and more recently from the 1st of Jan, the CBAM that requires hourly matching outside of EU in order to import goods into the EU. And in both cases, the European Commission decided to completely ignore the geo scheme that they even set up themselves, because they consider it didn't tick the box for hourly matching because geos are not granular. If the geos were actually hourly, they would have potentially considered using hourly geos rather than enforcing PPA, because actually the hourly matching needs to be done through PPAs in the regulation. So I think there's already a credibility issue, not only from the customer concerns. And so yeah, as Frédéric said, there's this notion of additionality that is important. There's a lot of research that's been done on hourly matching and additionality, and what drives the best, the fastest decarbonization is if you do hourly matching plus additionality. But even doing a mix of both or hourly matching without fully additional assets, that already yields some carbon savings compared to doing annual matching with energy attribute certificates. So yeah, we need this notion of additionality is still important. But it comes at a cost, it's a premium, and there will be a need for a mix of both. Were there any other questions? Alan, is the power bundle with certificates, or are you just buying certificates? I assume this is for the UK. I can mention what we see in the UK, the market standard, but there may be other ways that some people are doing it other ways. The most common way to do hourly matching in the UK is that the energy suppliers are using the PPA. Why are they doing that? It's because through the PPA, they have access to the hourly matching and the REGO. So it's basically the only way to do hourly matching, because if you buy a certificate, you don't have access to the hourly matching data. So even though in theory you could find some certificates, get the hourly matching data, the hourly metering data, and then do the matching, in most cases, the most simpler setup is to use the PPAs that you have as an energy supplier to supply your customers with hourly match tariffs, because you have the certificate and the metering data. And that's the 2 requirements. You need the certificate and the metering data to do an hourly matching tariff. There's a question on the GLG protocol. It's true that we didn't speak much about the GLG protocol, but it was one of the trigger for this report, because there was a consultation that started in September from the GLG protocol in October on the scope 2 changes. And in the proposed changes, there was a suggestion to move all the carbon accounting for carbon emission for carbonate from electricity consumption to a more granular calculation based on hourly matching. And so, yeah, that triggered. This is one of the reasons why we launched this report, because there's been a few end consumers that were saying, that's going to make my life super complicated. Right now, it's quite easy to calculate my scope 2 emissions, because I just take my one number, my electricity consumption, I multiply it by one coefficient, or usually by zero because I bought enough guarantees of origin, and done. I got zero Scope 2 emissions market based, and that's quite easy. And now if you move all the calculation to hourly, that becomes super complicated for me. It's quite a lot of things. It's quite complicated for me, and so this is why we did this report, because it explained that actually the energy retailers, it's part of their job to handle all this complexity on behalf of the end consumer. They can source electricity from lots of different assets. They can match it to your consumption, and they can even report on directly to you on the hourly emissions linked to your electricity consumption, depending on the different sources, the different generation of electricity. So it means if you go for an hourly match tariff from an energy supplier, there's not going to be any additional complexity for you to calculate. It may, however, mean that instead of having a zero in your Scope 2 emissions market-based, you're going to have something that is maybe close to zero, but not equal to zero anymore.
I'd just jump in on that also. I think in terms of, to your point around whether it's a potential accelerator for demand, I think definitely, and in terms of providing some clarity for corporates and businesses, it's been great that a lot of businesses were sort of coming to us as at Baringa asking so much uncertainty around what the standards will look like. How do I sort of future-proof a procurement strategy to make sure that I'll be covered depending on how the greenhouse gas protocol consultation transpires. So now that we have the clear direction of travel, it's really around making sure that the contracts are in place to set you up for success, whether those are legacy contracts that you've signed about PPAs or you're developing on-site generation. There is some recognition in the standards going that those investments will have some sort of grandfathering and legacy clause that will carry those forward. So to your point around how should businesses respond to the consultation, I think the deadline's towards the end of January now. There's still time to support the consultation, put your views across. It's definitely, the momentum is building behind 24/7 and hourly matched tariffs, and having that secured in the final standard will be essential for continuing that momentum.
And maybe on my side, to rebound on what you said, Beth, and the experience we have for a couple of months now engaging customers all across the world is that the first motivation of our customers to go to 24/7 is the transparency, to have a more transparent supply. This is the first motivation. The second one, I would say, is the impact on the system, and it comes with the additionality, with the integration of new corporate PPA, new additional corporate PPA in the basket of PPA dedicated to specific customers. And I would say the third one is to go beyond the standard and to anticipate what could come in the coming years. So this is something that our customers told us as a specific motivation. And of course, you have the energy management. It's also a way to combining different source of different technology and starting with batteries. And by the way, demand side management and battery behind the meter could be as well involved in the optimization, in the global optimization of the electron, as well as in the increase of the early matching score. So, well, this is basically what we have in mind and what we listen from customers over the last months.
I can see, Rachel, maybe there's a question dedicated to you specifically for you on RE 100 and 24/7 CFE that you want to take.
Yeah, absolutely. So following on from that on the proposals of GHGP and Scope 2 reporting updates, having different criteria for RE 100 and 24/7 CFE, will it confuse corporates, especially as many have to consider SBTI along with GHG guidelines too? Is there a plan to align these? The answer is yes. Obviously, the 24/7 and NARI 100 technical criteria have been out before the GHGP Scope 2 revisions are finalised, and from the 24/7 side, we are in a 2-year process of reviewing our first draft technical criteria. We have 6-month review points, and then after that we'll go to the 2-year review cycle, which is the same as RE 100s. So yes, once the GHGP guidelines are finalised and SBTIs, we will have a review process that makes sure we align across all of that, because we want to make sure this is as easy as possible for corporates to engage in, and so it just makes sense for there to be that alignment. Yes.
Thanks, Rachel. I can see there's still a few questions that we haven't answered yet. I can see one question on the market for hourly certificates. I'm happy to start on that one, but feel free to jump in, Frederic, Beth, or Rachel. So for now, there's not that many hourly certificates are not very widespread across Europe, but we've seen that the 2 largest registries, so Grexol and Unicorn Strategy, have now the capabilities to issue hourly certificates. So we expect that in the coming years, some member states will move to hourly certificates, which will make the life easier for complying with some regulations like RFNBO. And when this happens, the market for certificates will change, meaning we may end up with a different price on every single hour for the guarantees of origin. And what about the intermittency of renewable and curtailment issues and all that? We've done some studies. We've done, for example, an R&D study with National Grid, the TSO in the UK, around guarantee of origin prices if we were to move to hourly certificates. And the results were quite interesting. The volatility is quite high. It could be even higher than power market. So it's a nice signal. It's a nice market signal for storage or demand side or DSR. So that's one of the interesting points. And the other is that basically, if your price right now is 2 euros per megawatt hour on average over the year for certificates, these 2 euros are going to be now spread across the year. There may be many hours where there's oversupply of renewable capacities, and so the price on these hours may be 0 or close to 0 for the guarantees of origin, and a few hours of scarcity when the price may actually be 20, 30, or 40 euros per megawatt hour, averaging over the year still 2, 3 euros per megawatt hour to the same average as in an annual world. So it's just a matter of spreading the value across the different hours of the year, which is in itself a good thing because it provides a market signal for flexibility and storage. I don't know, Beth, Frederic, or Rachel, if you have any view on that.
Just to echo your points, in that I think we're going from a past history of falling prices for these green certificates, whereas in a potentially hourly certificate market we could be facing much more volatility. So I think corporates that have set these ambitious Scope 2 targets, assuming that they can buy unbundled annual EACs and green certificates, it's at quite a low price. That's shift, or potentially if we do go to the hourly certificate standard, that will change and prices will be volatile, and corporates will have to navigate if their demand falls within a price period of super high certificate prices. What other contracts do they have in place? What demand side response mechanisms do they have to try and shift their demand to more renewable hours, peak of the day when the sun is shining and there's lots of certificates available? It's all around providing the market signals for storage, as Bruno mentioned, and bringing sort of smarter energy consumption to more consumers.
Well, on my side, I would say that for our premium offer, again, via PPA, doesn't change a lot of things, as we are pricing that kind. So first, it's bespoke structuration, and we are pricing first the power and the electron, and then it comes with the certificate, the guarantee of origin or the rego. For the access 24/7 by Engie, it will ease, it will facilitate the pricing of the contract if we have access for sure to hourly certificate, and it will give to the market a price signal much more consistent than what it is today.
Thanks for your insights. I can see another question from Michael. Do the panel have any thoughts on how AI will affect the state of hourly matching for LEU energy users over the next 5 years? I assume this is a question coming from someone from Ireland, because I can see this LEU acronym, which means large energy users, which is a way to say data centers in Ireland. It's quite interesting because Ireland is at the forefront of this. They're very, very high electricity consumption coming from data centers, even before the boom of AI, where they had already 3 years ago more than 20% of the electricity consumption that were coming from data centers. And that triggered already 2 years ago some actions from the government that said they wanted to start, the actual wording is enhanced reporting for data centers, for large energy users in Ireland. Meaning the rules would be stricter for data centers than for others in terms of electricity reporting. And actually the Irish Energy Agency took this, wrote a report suggesting that data centers should do hourly matching instead of annual matching. So I assume this question is around this. What would how this boom of electricity consumption from data centers would affect the state of hourly matching. And so we think there's going to be more initiatives like in Ireland of government that are trying to actually put rules on electricity consumption from data centers, making sure that the new data centers are not cannibalizing all the electricity, and especially the renewable electricity from the others. So making sure they actually build new assets, additional new assets, and that they have some reporting on to ensure that they have a high hourly matching scores. And even if it's not a regulation yet, you can see a few large data center companies like Google that are already doing that. They're already trying to build new additional assets and ensure they have a minimal impact on the grid by building and sourcing and on every single hour being supplied by new renewable assets.
Yeah, we see
Maybe
large
Frederic.
tech. Yeah, we see large tech company very involved and very committed to go to that transparency that that can bring a 24/7 carbon-free energy initiative or contract. Some other a little bit less, or have, let's say, see the decarbonization and their commitment a little bit differently, that to match on early granularity their consumption with green production. But agree with you, Bruno. I see that where you have a lot of new demand coming from a data center, I'm pretty sure that the public authorities will take care of that situation to and I mean the new demand should be covered by additional assets, and that's quite basic. But if you take the green electron yet existing on the grid and not supporting the construction and the emergence of new assets, that's an issue.
Yeah, I will just add that there's actually kind of already a legal framework in Europe that's been created with RFNBO, renewable fuel from non-biological origin. So in 2023, the European Commission created the rules for green hydrogen in the EU. And in order to do green hydrogen, you need hourly matching. You need the electricity coming to your electrolyzer. You need to ensure that it's green by proving hourly matching with new renewable assets. And actually, this framework from 2023 has now been reused just a few months ago in the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism from the European Union. This time it's outside of the EU. If you want to produce some goods outside of the EU and import them into the EU, you need to make sure that in the country where it's been produced, you did a hourly matching to calculate the emissions with additional assets. So there's kind of this framework that's already existing in Europe and then maybe reused for other industries. So green hydrogen, but it could be actually applied to data centers or to green steel or to any others. And in the case of hydrogen, it requires new additional assets.
And just from a climate group side, AI is something that's we are looking at the moment, we're starting work on. So it's certainly something that we see as important. And if that's something that others in here are working on, please do get in touch. We're open to collaborations, sort of as we're building work on this. And as well as the kind of demand, sort of impact for electricity that it could have, which others have already spoken about. I guess one thing that I would add into the mix here is there could be potential uses in terms of managing the data or optimizing the demand profiles and things like that. So there could be those benefits potentially as well. But yeah, we are working on this ourselves.
We're coming to an end, and I think we've answered nearly all questions. So yeah, thanks everyone for attending our webinar. You have the contact details. You know how to reach out to Engie and Climate Group if you have any questions, and to us as well. So yeah, we'll be sharing the slides and the recording to all the attendees in the coming days or weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks all.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.